Ava Gardner finally discusses Humphrey Bogart at 67. In Grabtown, a rural North Carolina town, Ava Lavinia Gardner was born on December 24, 1922. Ava was raised in a small working-class family in the Depression-era South and experienced its challenges and perseverance. Her parents were poor tobacco sharecroppers, and Ava was the youngest of 7. She had beauty and presence that would define her cinematic persona despite economic and personal hardships throughout her youth. Her Southern upbringing shaped her personality and approach to life and work, giving her a natural grace and down-to-earth sincerity. Ava entered Hollywood through luck, time, and talent. MGM talent scouts spotted her in the early 1940s, drawn to her remarkable beauty, dazzling green eyes, honey blonde hair, and classic features, as well as her energy and charisma. Gardner's early career included tiny roles that showed her acting range, but her 1946 feature The Killers established her as a cinematic powerhouse. She could effortlessly switch between seduction, fragility, and fierce independence as complicated, morally ambiguous women, showing her aptitude beyond attractiveness. John Huston, Humphrey Bogart, and Burt Lancaster were among Ava Gardner's most notable collaborators. She worked hard to perfect her art, giving her characters a genuine emotional depth that connected with audiences and critics. Her flexibility and continuing appeal were shown in Magambo, 1953, Showboat, 1951, and On the Beach, 1959. Her performances on Love, Sorrow, and Resilience showed her artistic aptitude and grasp of human emotion. After arriving in Los Angeles for her MGM contract, Ava Gardner met Mickey Rooney, one of the studio's greatest rising stars. Rooney was famous across America for playing the wholesome Andy Hardy in the hit film series. The two fell in love quickly, and Gardner was charmed by Rooney's charm, humor, and vitality despite her small-town origins and inexperience with Hollywood's fast-paced lifestyle. Their romance grew swiftly, and Gardner, 19, married on January 10, 1942. A small village called Ballard, California, far from Los Angeles, hosted the wedding. MGM studio president Louis B. Mayer planned this privacy action. Mayer worried that Rooney's marriage would tarnish Andy Hardy's all-American boy next-door image. Mayer felt that if audiences discovered Rooney was married, especially to a beautiful young woman like Gardner, fans, especially young girls who loved him, would lose interest in his wholesome single persona that had made him so successful. Unfortunately, the marriage ended abruptly. Gardner realized that Rooney's boyish charm hid significant gambling and womanizing. Rooney was a party animal with late-night parties, affairs, and reckless spending despite his innocent appearance. Gardner, yet adjusting to Hollywood, was devastated by his behavior. Within a year of marriage, she filed for divorce in 1943. Mental cruelty as the official explanation. She privately blamed Rooney's infidelity and compulsive gambling for the divorce. Gardner protected Rooney's reputation in the public despite his own suffering. She kept his flaws a secret to preserve Andy Hardy's stardom. Gardner quietly left as the studio press preserved Rooney's wholesome image. Her first Hollywood marriage taught her the harsh realities of stardom. Gardner married jazz musician and band leader Artie Shaw, a swing legend, 2 years later. Shaw, who was married to Lana Turner, was noted for his musical prowess and controlling demeanor. Gardner, in her early 20s, was drawn to Shaw's complex music and intellectualism. However, their relationship soured rapidly. Shaw apparently expected Gardner to meet his high expectations, criticizing her schooling and history. He was a perfectionist in music and relationships, and Gardner found his condescension intolerable. Gardner became disillusioned again about finding true love during their brief, tumultuous marriage from 1945 to 1946. Her third marriage was her most significant and lasting and romantic. Ava Gardner married Frank Sinatra in 1951, a famous man like her. Sinatra left Nancy Barbato for Gardner, sparking a media frenzy. The scandal of Sinatra leaving his family for the dazzling starlet made headlines, and the public's interest in their affair escalated. Gardner later wrote in her autobiography that Sinatra was her lifelong passion. Their passionate, seductive, confusing love was distinguished by great devotion and destructive arguments. The famed Gardner-Sinatra marriage was fiery. Both stars were independent, headstrong, and under constant public scrutiny. Their relationship was plagued by jealousy, fierce disagreements, and passionate reconciliations. Gardner was twice pregnant throughout their relationship, but she terminated both pregnancies. She wrote in her post-mortem memoirs 8 months after her death that MGM had harsh contract stipulations punishing female stars for having children. The studio worried parenthood would limit a star's marketability, and Gardner felt stuck. Her choices represented Hollywood women's struggles, compelled to prioritize jobs over personal life under studio control. The frequent tension drove Gardner to divorce in 1954. Their divorce was formalized in 1957 after a lengthy legal separation. Gardner and Sinatra remained close after their divorce. They turned their stormy romance into an enduring friendship after the divorce. Gardner always called Sinatra her lifelong love. Sinatra supported and cared for her. After the passion died down, they stayed close until Gardner's 1990 death. They had one of Hollywood's most intense, dramatic, and lasting love stories during and after marriage. Ava Gardner was 67 and had lived countless lifetimes. She was a glamorous MGM actress, a global film legend, a Hollywood scandal maker, a three-time marriage, a jet-set adventurer, and, in her latter years, a lady reflecting on cinema's golden age. Gardner collaborated with Clark Gable, Gregory Peck, Burt Lancaster, and Frank Sinatra, who became one of her greatest loves. Humphrey Bogart, a person from her history, was widely acknowledged by others but hardly mentioned by Ava for decades. Bogart was a Hollywood star when Gardner debuted. Casablanca, 1942, and The Maltese Falcon, 1941, converted him from a gangster character actor into a 1940s icon. Known for his toughness, cynicism, and detachedness, he was also known for his keen wit, unexpected sensitivity, and dedication to friends. Gardner was hesitant about commenting on him publicly out of respect, Hollywood politics, and her disdain of fueling the gossip mills. Gardner ultimately opened up in her late 60s, long after Bogart's 1957 death. She said with a half-smile in her London flat that Bogart was unique. He was not as tough as the movies depicted. He was smart and hilarious, and he made you feel like you were in on the joke. Always admired that about him. After pausing, she continued, explaining how Bogart's cinematic persona differed from her real-life guy. Many forget Bogie's little stature. He wasn't tall or attractive like Cary Grant. When he entered a room, the mood altered. His presence was magnetic. He held your attention. Gardner, you can't fake it in real life or on TV. Who was once dismissed as a pretty face, felt a connection to Bogart and how Hollywood undervalued them both. He struggled to prove himself like I did, she thought. For a long, people believed I was simply another gorgeous lady MGM scooped up. I knew nothing about acting. Bogie knew that battle, that you must prove you are more than your labels. Gardner recalled their personal interactions cautiously but warmly. She recalls nights out with Bogart and Lauren Bacall entertaining friends, and she, part of Sinatra's Hollywood circle, was often with Bogart. Bogie guarded his loved ones. Frank and he were close. Frank helped me understand him. Even though he could drink anyone under the table, he still had a sparkle in his eye. Even though the room was screaming for his attention, he made you feel seen. Gardner developed a yearning for Bogart's heyday, which was diminishing by the 1950s. I think about Hollywood's doom when I think of Bogie, one of the last generations who didn't care about polish. He smoked, drank, and spoke his mind. Studios couldn't make another Bogart. I swear, they attempted with 12 men, but failed. He was genuine. Her tone softened as she realized his hardships. He was flawed. He had demons like everyone else. His moods and stubbornness were sometimes troublesome, but that made him human. It made him Bogart. Maybe that's why people still can't let him go after all these years. He left something impenetrable. At 67, Ava Gardner gave a rare insight into Bogart's private life and reflected on her own mortality and legacy by discussing him candidly. She confirmed her principles by praising Bogart's genuineness, charm, and humanity. The resistance to be portrayed, the struggle to be taken seriously, and the longevity of personality. Gardner quietly sighed as she finished her afternoon thoughts. She spoke with admiration and melancholy. I doubt Bogie's will return. He was of his period, but also of all time. He deserves every bit of being remembered as he is. That's the best we can hope for. Ava Gardner's dazzling yet tempestuous life was shattered by a stroke in 1986. The beautiful actress, known for her great film presence, suddenly faced health issues. She had enough money to cover her medical bills, but Frank Sinatra, her former love, showed her incredible devotion. Sinatra, who has always cared for Ava despite their turbulent past, insisted on treating her. He booked a medically staffed private plane to take her to a U.S. doctor in comfort and safety. Ava, known for her great independence and pride, was astonished when Sinatra intervened, acknowledging their deep affinity, a friendship that endured. Despite these efforts, her health declined over time. Ava Gardner died at 67 on January 25, 1990. She died peacefully in Westminster, London, from bronchopneumonia, far from her North Carolina roots, but surrounded by Hollywood legend that had never faded. Her death shook the entertainment business, with fans remembering her memorable roles in The Killers, Magambo, and The Barefoot Contessa and her wild spirit. On January 29th, Ava Gardner was returned to Smithfield, North Carolina, and buried in Sunset Memorial Park, in the company of her adored siblings and parents, Jonas and Molly Gardner. A small-town girl who became a global star, discovered eternal serenity. Fans still visit her cemetery to leave flowers, cards, and tributes.